Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Join me on today's video where I will review the Proxima PX1690. Now, I unboxed this watch a few weeks ago, so the specs and dimensions will be on screen for you guys to have a quick look at. Now, this was sent in to me by Proxima in order for me to review this, and I actually asked for this particular model because looking at the dial, that definitely caught my eye. It's not your usual run-of-the-mill dials. This is something truly gorgeous that Proxima have given us, and I really like what they've done with it. So this is going to be the main focal point. Not only that, we can see the watch case. We know clearly what watch this is homaging, and on my first impressions, I was simply blown away at the build quality that Proxima can actually provide us. I think this can easily go toe-to-toe with the best out there on the homage market, especially St. Martin. Now, let me start off by giving you some prices and the different color options available. The price for this watch is just under or around £200, and in the sale price it is around £182 if this video gets released before the AliExpress August sale runs out. You do have two different options. You've got this blue that you see in front of you, and you've also got a really lovely green. Now, the only thing with Proxima, they do have a bit of a branding issue. You can get this watch with a unicorn logo. Those of you that have been following Proxima for a while, you will know that Proxima did bring out a brand called Unidive, and that's where the unicorn logo came from. Now, I did request from Proxima that they find a dial with Proxima on there, and they did get back to me and gave me this particular one. So this Proxima print on the dial is definitely an option. Now, they also have a third option, which is a meteorite dial, which does look stunning. I'll see if I can get a picture up for you guys, and that is around £300, but that is genuine meteorite. And if you got that kind of money to spend on a watch from AliExpress, I'd say it's definitely one to have because it is extremely unique. And the watch, they have really done well in terms of how they've finished it. And that dial is just out of this world. So since we are here talking about the dial, let me go into a little more detail. You can see straight away the dial is of a very high quality, even without that pattern in the background. You've got applied baton hour markers, which do have a polished frame. You've got baton rectangular style hands, printed logo just below the 12, and simply printed automatic above the 6. You've also got a date window at the 3 o'clock with a polished and chamfered frame. You've got a printed mini track which goes around the dial. The printing is really well done and there's no patchiness at all, and Proxima does have a really high dial standard. Now, the main thing is, of course, this grey pattern that you see behind you. They've literally gone for a snowflake print, and no doubt they've had some inspiration from the date palm leaf style of dial that we have seen on higher end models. I just like how well they've executed this. It is awesome to look at. As the watch goes through different light variations, those snowflakes actually go through a sun ray gradient, and whereas the rest of the dial is just a bit of an aquamarine blue. Another thing which I love about the snowflakes is the fact that they sit in the background, under dark light, but as soon as you get that flash of light across there, they seem to come to life, and you can see them present on the dial. So I'm really pleased with how they have executed that, and I've always said Proxima's dial game is really up there. They really use high quality dials. Not only has the dial been finished really well, let's have a look at the hands used. Now, you've got these baton style rectangular hands, but you can see when I flash that through the light that they are chamfered on either end with a flat center. So the hands have plenty of facets, allowing for legibility under various different lighting conditions. Now, the thing which finishes it off for me is that second hand. You can see it does have that top cap finisher. Now, we first saw this from watches like St. Martin. It just gives an added level of detail and finishing. Now, one of the criticisms I do have on this dial is the 3 o'clock date window. Now, due to the dimensions of the dial, I think this is around 31mm, and the PT5000 movement that this uses, the date window is slightly too far to the center. It should be closer to the outer edge, but as I said, the reasoning behind that is, of course, the dial dimensions. Now, I definitely would have preferred this watch to not have a date window and just allow a symmetrical dial. Considering you've got that gorgeous snowflake pattern, just leave that out there. Not everything needs a date, and you hear a lot more people saying they prefer dateless watches. And I think if they'd done that, you really wouldn't have this date window that not only is in the way, breaks up the symmetry slightly, but it is also too far to the center, just slightly. But you can see quite a large gap from that 3 o'clock index where the date window should be generally closer to that side. Now, let's go ahead and check out the lume. The watch does have BGW9 lume, and Proxima never really fail on lume. This has enough layers applied. You can see that our markers are thick and raised. You've got the same color lume on the handset also. It does burn bright, you know, it is long lasting and very evenly applied. And I do like that cool blue coming through, especially this being a snowflake dial. It really does go really well together. Now let's turn our attention to this case. It is 37mm, and you can see one of the things with these cases is that they've gone for a very slim bezel. I like how slim this bezel is. It does give the watch a really nice side profile. You know, this coming in just around 11mm thick. That is not a lot. And the bezel has been polished to a mirror-like finish. Now, moving on to the case, this is where this watch really does stand out. In the finishing, you can definitely feel this in your hand. You know, looking at the lugs, you've got this very fine circular brushing. You can just about make out the grain, and they've got satinized brushing along there. You can just see that lug tip. That is very, very fine indeed, and it feels so smooth to touch. Now that transitions into the side of the case, which in this style of cases they are all polished, and that transition line is very clean. You know, mirror polish on either side. So I really like the execution and how they have gone about getting this case manufactured and finished. Now you can see on the case you do have drill lugs, which will make it easy to, of course, change straps, which you are going to need because the strap they provide it on isn't the best. I'll be surprised if many people like it. It's that standard Croc style leather strap. It's not the cheapest of the cheap, you know, those ones clearly you can tell in your hand they're very shiny and quite stiff. This one is marginally better. However, I don't really think this suits the watch, and it just has been put together. They really need to work on a bracelet or actually provide it with a totally different strap with a bit of character, which does suit the character of the watch. Now, away from that strap, you know, one of the nicer things about this case as well is function of that crown. Now, usually the problem I have with these style of cases is the crowns are just a little bit too slim, and I find it quite fiddly to use. Now, but with this crown, it is around 6.4mm in diameter, which does really help you to grip that crown, screw it out. Of course, you know, go about setting the time. With the PT5000, it does hack, and it screws in really well. Especially with these thick gloves on, you can definitely tell the watch crown does work quite well. So as I gave you a glimpse of the crown, no signage on there, and also a sterile case back, you know, a traditional case back that we see on almost all of the watches that homage this particular design. You've got some brushing on the back, which is not too important, but yeah, the finishing on the case, you know, how slick it is, no sharp edges at all. This is something which I must stress. It is finished extremely well. So I do like reviewing these kind of watches. The main reason is there's not a lot to actually talk about, and it makes my job a lot easier. So one thing which I can do though is take it off this strap, and I've got a strap which I do want to try it on, and then I'll give you guys a wrist shot and summarize on this watch. So the strap I've decided to put it on is a dark brown leather strap. You can see it does have that waxy sort of texture, where, you know, when you do kind of squeeze it, it does change a bit of color. It's that distressed style leather strap with color matching stitching. Now the strap is extremely supple, and if you're interested, these are available on my eBay store to purchase. And I think, you know, brown straps on, you know, blue dials, it does really make them pop. So what do you guys think about this watch on this brown strap? Now let me get it on wrist and show you guys what it looks like. On wrist today, I'm wearing my Seiko Daytona quartz. It's something to pick up and go, and I've got the Merca rubber strap on there, which surprisingly is a really good match. So here's the Proxima PX1690 on my 6.5-inch wrist. That dial really does pop, and coupled with the brown leather strap, it all goes really well together. Now the dimensions on the watch are going to fit a wrist of around 6.5 inches or even a bit bigger extremely well. You've got that 37mm diameter plus that 45.5mm lug to lug, which makes the watch sit really well on wrist. And yeah, I'm definitely charmed by the dial, and coupled with this leather strap. I just wish they really didn't give us this Croc style strap, and I really do want them to start looking at bracelets now, because that is one thing missing, you know, from their brand, from all the watches. Don't get me wrong, they have great watch cases, great ingenuity behind there, and awesome dials, but now they really need to step up and look at the bracelets. The watch is very comfortable on wrist, and, you know, definitely due to the dial, it will stand out. So let's summarize, and let's start off with some pros. Pros for me is definitely that dial. I really like what they've done. I like the hour markers, you know, pretty much all of the dial build. One thing which I don't like is the date window, as I said earlier. Now, the other thing which I really like, as I showed you guys, is the case finishing, the case shape, drill lugs, polished sides, you know, very smooth in hand, and that satinized brushing on the lugs. you know, in hand you can definitely feel the quality of this watch. There's no doubt about that. Negatives, I've already touched upon the position of the date window, and the other thing which I already touched upon was actually the strap that they provide. You know, I'm glad they didn't give us that hard canvas strap that they provided with the previous models, and they went for leather, but they definitely need to work on a bracelet or provide it with, you know, something, you know, kind of like this with a bit of character that really kind of match that dial. I think it is reasonably well priced. £200 for a PT5000 movement, you know, with the dial aesthetics, the finishing on the handset, that's something which I really like also. That top cap on the second hand, you know, everything together, I think £200 is more than reasonable. So that's my summary on this Proxima PX1690. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What changes would you prefer that they make? And I'll try and feed that back to Proxima. Hopefully they can come up with something which, you know, we all really like and appreciate, because they do have some stunning models and they do have some really well finished watches. So that's it from me today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.